we're going to take her ass and cook with it. Dude, like, how does he even get here? Fire Force Season 3 has just come out, and this would be a very different review if I had done this last week, but since episode 4 has come out, there's a lot more details to talk about, so let's get right into it. The first thing to note is that I hopped on the first episode of Season 3, and I was a bit confused because I remembered very little. I just vaguely remember the characters, but all of the big plot points I just sort of forgot, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, how long has it been? Because in my mind, I don't know if it's just my decaying old age or whatever it may be, but in my mind, Fire Force Season 2 came out like last year or 2 years ago, and instead it came out in 2020, so 5 years ago. That's a lifetime ago in internet age, and so it's no wonder that I remembered nothing. Thankfully for me and a lot of people in my situation, they did a very quick recap, and usually I really hate recaps and flashbacks of all kinds, but I do think there is a time and a place for them, and for a sequel like this one, which is 5 years removed from its predecessor, I do think that a recap is useful because they do have to sort of take into consideration that many people perhaps in the distant future will binge watch Fire Force all in a row, so they don't want to make a recap that's too big and too annoying, just something you want to skip through and fast forward, but at the same time they also want to take into consideration that some people like me watched it weekly back in the day and are watching Season 3 weekly now, and they need a little bit of a refresher to sort of put us up to speed as to what's going on with the story. Fire Force Season 3 is exactly as I remember it being from the previous seasons, which is a very strange and peculiar and very entertaining mixed bag with a lot of positive points and also a lot of negative points. So let's go first through the positive. Let's talk about the things that make Fire Force so entertaining to watch. For an anime that is essentially an ecchi battle shonen, and I know some people will not like this connotation, but it is what it is, you cannot deny it. With what we see on the screen with our very own eyes, it just is an ecchi battle shonen, okay? Accept it, the truth shall set you free. For an anime like this, the story, in my mind, is actually very, very interesting, with all of these themes of fire and godlike figures and the sun and the fire relating to the cycle of life itself. Some people get touched by this fire and become a monstrous infernal, but others gain powers from it. The premise itself is, in my mind, very, very fascinating. And the way the plot interacts with this premise is also very compelling. We see that our characters are working for the government, but there's a conspiracy behind the scenes and so many mysteries that we don't know about this world, and things keep getting revealed with every new season, and everything is, in my mind, very interesting. We get these tiny new details every season. It gets a little bit juicier, a little bit more interesting, and we see that our heroes now sort of have to stray away from the lawful path because the government itself is working against them, and just everything is super cool if you try to abstract it and just think about the premise and the sort of series synopsis. It really sounds super cool, and it is. I really do think this is a very visually appealing series. The fight scenes themselves are super cool. Having each character with a theme of fire is super engaging to watch, because usually this is something that has been known ever since you were 3 years old and you picked Charmander for your starter. Maybe some people will not relate with that, but I know most of you will. Fire is just super cool in anime, and to have every single character with fire powers is just super cool, because usually the fire power dude is always the coolest dude, and here everyone is the coolest dude. I will say though, some of the fire powers in this show really stretch credibility, because we have the basic stuff like I make fireball and I make fire kick, to then the more dubious connections like I use heat to control the magnetism of metal objects and I make them fly around, or the best one yet, I use the heat of the universe to slow down time itself. That is complete bullcrap, but I believe you because it sounds cool. From an aesthetic standpoint alone, I think this show is very good because the character designs are for the most part very nice, and the fights themselves, not only do they have cool looking powers, but also are for the most part very well animated. I say for the most part because Fire Force is a little bit like that student which you know is very bright, but he doesn't always put in his best effort. So at moments you can really see him shine and his genius comes true whenever he's motivated, but at other times it can be a bit rough. stuff, and you see that he's just phoning it in. Speaking of the characters, I have to address the elephant in the room, or should I say the big milkers and behind in the room, which is the thing that a lot of people hate about Fire Force, and they really think it turns them off the series, which is the fan service. And I've seen many series with fan service and ecchi series to a degree where I started watching anime so early in my life. I was just barely a teenager and I didn't even know what fan service was. I just thought Japanese cartoons had big boobies because that's just what they did. I didn't really think about it. I didn't rationalize it that way, if it makes sense. So I sort of have a brain filter where I just sort of ignore fan service. A lot of people say, oh, that scene was very suggestive, very provocative. And I'm like, well, what scene? What are you talking about? Because in my mind, maybe I'm just desensitized by this point, but I don't even register it. However, Fire Force is very in your face. Literally, it's impossible to ignore. And the thing about fan service is, whose fans are we servicing with Fire Force? Because the ecchi scenes are just so silly, so goofy. It's so stupid that it actually loops around to being genius because it's almost like satire. Who is gooning to this? It's just so silly. Are you gooning to this? Confess in the comments right now. Latom. So, for example, in the latest episode, there was this evil lady who was controlling metal objects through the heat of magnetism, through her gold gauntlet or whatever. Who cares? It's a convoluted premise. How do they solve this very precarious situation and beat this evil lady? They decide to melt iron to block her gold gauntlet to prevent her from using her powers. Okay. That seems straightforward enough. There's a lot of fire users, so they can obviously just grab a bunch of metal parts, melt them, and put it on the gauntlet. That seems very straightforward. Now, how do they go about it though, is where they go the extra mile. These homies actually proceed to use Tamaki's booty as a cooking oven, and they just put iron parts in the ass and cook it, and I'm like, what is going on? This is so stupid. It's so stupid, it makes no sense. But at the same time, I was in awe. I was mesmerized because what am I watching? Who thought of this? I want to know more about the behind the scenes of Fire Force because I want to know what is the author's creative process. How is the author who gave us stuff like Soul Eater, which was great by the way, how is that same dude all of a sudden just thinking to himself, yes, and then we're going to take her ass and cook with it. Dude, like, how does he even get here? Who thought of this? It's just so goofy. And the thing about Tamaki is that I want to root for her because her character, if you sort of ignore those scenes, which is impossible to, by the way, but if you manage to abstract away from those scenes, her character is actually very endearing. She's this weak underdog who knows her weakness and is always struggling and fighting to get better and grow stronger and be as useful as she can with her limited power moves, which are not as powerful as her other colleagues like Arthur or Shinra, but she still tries her best, and yet it's just so hard to take her seriously because she's just a personified fan service and she just detracts from every single action scene that she's in. She's just comic relief at this point, because me personally, if I didn't turn it off right away, I just laugh at it, which is what I end up doing. I just laugh at it because it's just impossible to take seriously. And her character design is actually very good and very cute with the sort of cat theme and the cat ears or whatever. I like her character design, but it's just the way that she's used is just so goofy and perverted. It's hard to take seriously. When it comes to the cast, from what I remember, having read the manga many years ago when I was a prepubescent teenager, so my memory may be a little bit fuzzy, forgive me for that, but I think the cast for Soul Eater was better, as in I liked them more, they were more endearing, I liked rooting for them more, and the overall aesthetic also helped a lot the series feel a little bit more gritty, more mature, more adult, but I'm sure that if I went back and watched it back, I'm sure it also has plenty of fan service because the author doesn't just wake up one day and decide to write Tamaki, right? The signs should have been there from the very beginning. But I still think that even though I prefer the cast for Soul Eater, the cast for Fire Force is also very good. You have characters like Arthur, who is one of my favorites because he's so dumb and so goofy and so delusional, but he's just super entertaining on what he does, and he's very endearing in his delusions of grandeur and his knight fantasies. He's a very, very funny character to watch, and I like him a lot. And also the main character, for what it's worth, I think he's relatively complex for, once again, what you would expect from a series like this. I think there's the issue with his brother, with his father figures, the one who mentored him, and I think he's always making a progress to get better, get stronger. He's not a protagonist who relies on his God-given abilities, or a protagonist who just sort of coasts around and just acts lazy or anything. I like him as a protagonist. I think the supporting cast is also very good, with some exceptions and some characters that I just can't take seriously, like Tamaki, for example. But overall, I think the cast is very good and the story is very interesting. I just think that the ecchi really takes it over the top and sort of detracts from what is, in my opinion, something that could be very good and very memorable. The best way I could put it is that Fire Force is this generation's fairy tale, which has all the good and bad that comes with it. I think that's probably the best comparison I could use, and for some of you that will be a bad thing, for some of you that will be a good thing, and both sides are probably right in what I'm going for. Also, as a fan of ReZero, I do have to say that I love series that have cults as antagonists. I think having a fanatical, organized group working for some sort of collective idea is super, super strong as a sort of base for villains. So I really, really like that. I love cults, which is a bit of a weird thing to say on video. Maybe I should take that back. I mean, in fiction only, okay? I do not like cults in real life. I think I've never been in one, but I would like to be. Once again, I think the villains for this show are also very good because some of them are just the evil psychopaths who do what they're told or whatever, but you also have some of them which, in their mind, they're doing the right thing. And to me, that is my favorite type of villain, the one that does despicable things but thinks he's justified. And also you have certain characters which, even though they're villains, you can see they care for each other. They're sort of like a family. They have these type deep bonds which you would normally associate the Nakama power with the good guys, but you also have that on the villain side. So I think that, once again, the villains are actually pretty well written for what it is, so that's also very good. And also, I do have to mention, because it's the final written note that I have for this video, I really don't like the opening for this third season. The thing about Fire Force is that it's very action-packed. It's essentially a battle shonen, so you want an opening that really hypes you up and primes you for the fight scenes and the action and the choreography and the Nakama power. And instead, this opening by Queen Bee is just very sad. It's just very melodramatic, and it just leaves you feeling all blue and numb. Just, what is this? I want something to hype me up. Yes, the previous opening by Kanabun, for example, was a bit of happy goofy, which is perhaps a little bit also off with the tone of the show. Hey, people are being combusted, ha ha ha, let's laugh about it. It can come across as a bit psychotic, but I do think that series like this need a more hype opening, and this opening by Queen Bee was just not it, which is very surprising to me because I love Queen Bee. They always put out great openings. The opening for Undead Unluck, the opening for Dorororo are some of the best openings of all time, but this one, in my mind, was just a miss, and it's mostly just the song itself, because the action scenes, the shots, the music animation is very, very good, very action-packed. It's almost like the animation is trying to compensate for the song being so sad. The animation is trying to hype you up a little bit, but the song just doesn't let you. So, yeah, this opening was a bit of a flop, in my opinion. I hope they get something a little bit more spicy for the next opening. I know this review is all over the place because there's just so much good and so much bad about Fire Force. To me, it slightly evens out where it's entertaining enough, where I can abstract away from the bad stuff or the stuff that I don't like, and it's still an entertaining, enjoyable watch for me. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to anyone, because especially not to people who aren't used to watching anime and the sort of more fanservice-y anime, because they would just give me the side eye, and then they would just stop talking to me, and then we'd have the awkward conversation. Hey man, what's going on? Did I do something? And they'd be like, yeah, I just didn't know you were into that kind of stuff. It's a bit weird. And then, you know, all that stuff we don't want to go through. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend Fire Force to anyone, even if you're an anime fan. The fan service can be very, very off-putting, and it's very Battle Shonen-esque, even if I think the story is interesting. A lot of conflicts are just resolved, let's be honest here, by fighting harder and the power of friendship. But even though I said all this, I still think overall it's entertaining to me. It's sort of my fairy tale. The new generation fairy tale is once again the best way I can put it for all the good and bad that comes with it. So let me know what you think about Fire Force in the comment section below. Be sure to follow me, links in the description, like, subscribe, and ciao!